Okay, so reports are coming through that the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans are nearing a deal this week that would send quarterback Deshaun Watson to the Miami Dolphins, who would become a Miami Dolphin upon the finalization of that deal. Huge news breaking here, and I just wanted to hop on and talk about it real quick. I was at the gym when the news broke, and I'm kind of thankful that I was at the gym because it gave it time for all the news to kind of come in, really digest my thoughts, and now I just want to kind of talk about it real quick here in this video. But first, if you guys could help us out, it helps out a ton. Like this video, first of all, it helps out a ton in the algorithm, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. We post 15 times a week at this point with 3 live streams, which is every primetime game, and the NBA is back as well. Multiple sources, like I was saying, have reported that the Dolphins and the Texans are close to a deal here that would send Deshaun Watson out, with the whole Tua factor possibly holding up the deal. We're not sure yet, all speculative, but it is definitely very interesting to see the Dolphins pulling the trigger here before the trade deadline and before this thing gets past the trade deadline, which would ultimately mean that the Deshaun Watson situation, as far as which team he is going to be on, wouldn't have been settled until the upcoming offseason. Now, the figures of the deal and how many picks the Miami Dolphins are having to give up and what's going on with Tua is all up in the air as well, and everything is super confusing at this very moment. All I know is that a bunch of media sources and a bunch of outlets are reporting that Deshaun Watson could be on the move this week and heading to Miami for an exchange of probably a number of picks and maybe even players. And where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't think that this many sources will be coming out with this news, and it would be so suddenly just like thrusted into the news like this unless there was some kind of truth. So let's talk about it, right? Deshaun Watson would be becoming a Miami Dolphin, and would this be a good move for the Miami Dolphins? I mean, on paper, you'd immediately get an upgrade from Tua Tagovailoa to Deshaun Watson. That's no offense to Tua. Deshaun Watson is an elite quarterback in this league on the field. He's been a guy that's talked about as a top 5 player in this league. He's got a nickname of the magician for the plays he's able to make solely on his own to make players miss in the pocket and extend the play with his legs and get the ball downfield. We saw him put up crazy numbers with a completely depleted Houston Texans team in 2020. And of course, there's the allegations off the field, and I'm going to talk about that as well in this video. But as far as on the field, on paper, this is a huge upgrade from Tua to Deshaun Watson for the Miami Dolphins. The whole thing with Miami has been interesting. Of course, they acquired a lot of picks, and they were making those selections in the last couple of years, Tua being one of those guys. They had multiple picks in this last year in the first round, and they really were going down the path of, we're going to acquire a bunch of picks, and we're going to develop a team from within, and that team is going to be the team that's going to take us over the top, and probably aiming for 2021, but 2022, 2023, 2024 time range, and to see them, they're possibly going to be trading a bunch of picks to acquire a veteran, proven superstar player. Seems like that plan might be abandoned at this point. And what makes it interesting to me is how desperate is Miami? Are they really getting to a point where they feel like they need to force this trade? Because if they really felt like Deshaun Watson was their future from the get-go, if they really felt like Deshaun Watson was the guy they wanted to bring in to this team to be surrounded by all those players they drafted with those picks, why wouldn't have you done it in the offseason? Why wouldn't have you made this deal already to acquire Deshaun Watson? Why would you let Tua go 6 weeks into the season playing? Of course he got hurt, but you would have imagined that you wanted him back then, hindsight's 2020, playing 6 weeks into the season until you eventually decide to go ahead and pull the trigger on a potential Deshaun Watson trade. To me, there's some pressure in Miami, whether it's on Brian Flores, whether it's on the GM, whether it's on whoever it may be. Look, this experiment with acquiring all these picks and trying to build from within has completely failed. We are not the New England Patriots. We cannot be the New England Patriots. This team was a playoff team potentially last year, just barely missing it with 10 wins, to this year they're 1-5 and just lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game that probably should have won. And if they had Deshaun Watson, I think they definitely would have won, even in London, against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So does this spell a little bit of desperateness from the Miami Dolphins? Is Brian Flores or is Greer, the GM, on the hot seat, and that's why they feel kind of a little bit more pressure to go ahead and make a move so that way they can pitch to save their jobs? Like, hey, how about you give us some time with Deshaun our QB position versus Tua. We got to make that adjustment to Deshaun Watson. But to me, that this just signifies, and if they do pull the trigger on this, and if they ship Tua out, they're throwing in the towel on this whole draft pick acquisition, from within game plan that they've had over the last couple of seasons that we all thought was going pretty well when we saw the Dolphins win 10 games and their defense improved so mightily last year. But now the question is this. We obviously saw everything that went down with John Gruden just recently in the news for everything that went down there and how awful that was and how bad of a look that is for the NFL. Now, just a week later, you're potentially going to see a guy who has 22 cases and allegations against him that are still unsettled and still don't know what's going to happen with those going forward, being thrusted into the news, and we're talking about it. I mean, I'm on the same screen with the guy, and if he is guilty of those charges, he should not even touch a football field for the rest of his life, let alone be, talked about like this. And of course, we're committing the exact same crime just because we want to talk about on the field impact and what's going to happen with the Dolphins, what's going to happen with Tua, and what's going to happen with Brian Flores and the Dolphins GM and all that kind of stuff. But there's a very real situation going on in Deshaun Watson's personal life. And if he does, and it's innocent until proven guilty, I will say that. I'm not going to defend him. I'm not going to call him guilty. But if he even committed half of these crimes, he should not be on a football field next year. So the Dolphins are taking a huge risk in acquiring Deshaun Watson. And as it stands right now, he's not officially suspended. I don't think he's officially on the exempt list. So if they did acquire Deshaun, potentially they could have him playing as soon as, maybe in a couple of weeks or this season, which is absolutely insane to think about with what's going on off the field with the Deshaun Watson situation and what the NFL just faced with the Chucky situation. So interesting on that note as well, the situation with Deshaun Watson and his off-the-field problems. How much does that hurt his value? Does that save the Dolphins an extra first-round pick? And that's why they don't want to wait until the offseason to make this trade happen. Have they been talking about this trade all year long while Tua's been hurt, and it just never got done, and now all of a sudden they're close to a deal, and that's why this news breaks out of the blue. Either way, that's the news. Deshaun Watson potentially heading to Miami to become a Miami Dolphin, whether he's going to play, not play, whether it's going to be for 10 first-round picks, 1 first-round pick. I have no clue what the details of the deal are or anything yet. I'm assuming it's going to be multiple picks and maybe even a player or two. There have been reports out of Houston from the Houston beat writers and media that they're not necessarily acquiring Tua in this deal. So that means that Tua would remain on the Dolphins to be dealt by the Dolphins elsewhere. And that brings me to Tua himself, and here he is on the screen. What does this mean for Tua? If the Houston Texans are not acquiring him, which I don't know why they wouldn't, do you think that you would at least try and give Tua a shot? I know Houston's awful, and it would be an awful situation for Tua's career and everything involved, but for the Texans themselves, you think trading out Deshaun Watson, a franchise quarterback, guaranteed guy, elite player in the league as far as on the field, you'd want to get a quarterback in return? Do you believe in Davis Mills? Don't think it's quite working out for him either. Why not take a shot on Tua with the state of this team, which is a rebuild, again, which they seem like they are in constantly? Have a young quarterback who was selected 6th overall for a reason, at a time that there was rumors that he would even be the first overall pick in a draft before that devastating injury at the end of his college career. There are some rumored landing spots, and there are some rumored teams that possibly could be getting involved in this deal to make it a 3-way deal, or it could just be the Dolphins straight up trade to another team, acquire a few more draft picks, and then flip those draft picks in the Deshaun Watson deal on the other end. But some of the teams that were rumored was Denver and Washington. For Denver, I don't think that deal really makes that much sense because Teddy Bridgewater is kind of a similar style quarterback to Tua if you eliminate the last game that Teddy played in where he was a turnover machine. He's not a guy that's going to elevate his team. He's not a guy that's going to come in and throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he is a guy that can manage the game. He is a guy that can play well if you have a good defense and a nice solid running game, pretty solid out of the play action. All the strengths that Teddy Bridgewater has, Tua has as well. And, of course, Tua's younger and has more potential to develop his skills and develop his game and become a better quarterback than he is right now and become a better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater is right now. But to keep the same style of quarterback, you're not going to see much change in your offense immediately, at least. It's going to take however many years or however long you think it's going to take Tua to develop and become what you want him to be by making that acquisition. I just don't see the move making too much sense. I feel like if the Broncos want to go away from Teddy Bridgewater because Teddy Bridgewater's been struggling the last couple of weeks, why don't you just throw Drew Lock out there? He's the complete opposite. He's a gunslinger. He's going to go out and throw the ball up for grabs, and Cortland Sutton's going to benefit from that. But I feel like if they're going to go a different direction, go to Drew Lock again, give him his last chance, and then just completely scrap it. Maybe go after one of the big quarterbacks like a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, or even just try and move up in the draft and draft a guy. Still super shocked they didn't draft Justin Fields with the 9th overall pick. They were sitting right there. They had the pick, and they didn't pull the trigger. So I don't think Denver necessarily even is a great fit. And the only thing I could see Denver thinking is that Tua is a franchise guy, and Denver now is throwing in their own towel this year and saying, we don't necessarily think that we're a playoff team, but they're still what? They're 3-4 or 3-3? They're 3-3. This team is in the thick of things for the wild card still, with a very good defense that could recover. And they had a bad game against Las Vegas, but you got to try and bounce back. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button and make a move like this. This drastic at this point that the Broncos are in right now in their season as a team and in their rebuild as a team. They've got a bunch of guys on this team that's ready for a quarterback right now. A bunch of guys are going to hit their prime at the same time at the end of their contracts, like Noah Fant. A bunch of guys like Jerry Jeudy. A bunch of guys like Bradley Chubb, a little bit more of a veteran, but he's also like hitting his prime right now. Justin Simmons. This team is loaded with young talent that's all kind of hitting their stride at the same time. You're going to see Javonte Williams and Patrick Surtain come into their own, and all of a sudden they're a QB away from really competing possibly for the AFC West and even the AFC possibly. If you lock yourself in with Tua here, you got to give him 2 years, 3 years to develop. I don't see them pulling the trigger on that deal. But hey, if you guys want to do it, I'm a Chargers fan. I support it. Trust me, I support it. And then Washington. Washington was the initial team rumored in the deal. I could see Washington making it happen. Washington has been looking for a quarterback for a very long time, looking for a franchise guy that they can hang on to, for 10-plus years. Kirk Cousins didn't quite work out the way that it looked like it was going to work out for them before he ended up in his contract dispute of his own. And they just kind of been meddling, reeling and dealing and trying to find guys. Alex Smith as a placeholder, Ryan Fitzpatrick as a placeholder. Tua Tagovailoa would be a direction that they can go down and a guy that they can put some backing behind as who they're going to develop for the future. Because I personally think that Washington is further away than Washington fans wanted to admit in the offseason. And I think that they are still a couple years away from really competing, especially in the NFC. They may actually be, a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers retirement away from really competing in the NFC and having a shot in the NFC anyways. So during that time, Tua can go ahead and develop. Your young guys on defense can continue to develop. As we can see, they're starting to show their youth a little bit more this year than they did last year. And on offense, they got a guy like Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, like same thing with Denver. They're going to have a bunch of guys in their prime at the same time, and when they need a quarterback by that time, maybe Tua can be their guy. So that one makes a little bit more sense to me, but the one that makes the most sense is Houston. Houston has no direction. They have no team that Tua would need to immediately be good for. They have the time to be patient with it and develop Tua if they brought him in and give him a shot to be a franchise quarterback in this league. Then some guys with outside shots, and if I was Tua, where I would want to go is to a place like Pittsburgh, to a place like Seattle where Russ may be on the way out. I would love to go to a place like New Orleans and team up with Sean Payton. I would love to go somewhere where there's been proven success with another quarterback, with you could pair yourself with a coach or just with a system that has worked with a quarterback previously. Even if you have to be a bench guy for a year and be behind a veteran quarterback for a year, go to a place where, like I said, there is a system, there is a game plan that is proven, that works, that they just need a guy that can execute, because that is Tua's strength. He doesn't jump off the paper. And Drew Brees' career is what Tua Tagovailoa should be looking at and what Tua Tagovailoa should be aiming for. No, I'm not trying to compare Tua to Drew Brees by any means, but really sit and think about it. Drew Brees isn't 6'6". Drew Brees didn't have 4.4 speed or crazy elusive ability. Drew Brees didn't ever have a rocket launcher of a cannon. Drew Brees' greatest strengths were, one, his tenacity, his leadership, and just his ability to execute the little things in the game of football and the little things that go into being a great quarterback in the NFL. And that is the same strengths of Tua Tagovailoa. Same thing with Tua. not this giant guy. Can move around, can scramble, not a super mobile quarterback, and has the hip injury holding him back. Doesn't have the rocket launcher of an arm, and in my opinion, his biggest weakness is down the field passing. New Orleans is the spot for Tua Tagovailoa. Of course, they have Jameis Winston, and they've been going forward with Jameis Winston, and they're a pretty decent team. I don't see them making a deal in the middle of the season like this. Maybe in the offseason they would have thought about it. So the rumored teams are Denver, Washington. I think Houston should just include him in the deal, but I really love, for Tua's sake, if Tua's going to succeed, because I want to see the guy succeed. Even though I'm a Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow fan, and I'm just always throwing it in the Dolphins fans' faces that Tua was the worst quarterback of those three by a wide margin. Like, we aren't even in similar tiers at this point. I do want to see Tua succeed. I think he's a good person. I think that he has a lot of heart. I think that he loves the game of football to death. And I think that he can be a successful guy and a long-term starter in the league if he finds the right situation where he can just use his strength to be that game-managing leader style of quarterback that we saw a guy like Drew Brees become and be for his entire career. Obviously not on the same scale. Please do not get in the comment section and try and say that I'm trying to compare Drew Brees' Hall of Fame, like top 10 all-time career to what Tua could be. I'm just trying to compare intangibles and where would be good landing spots for Tua. And unfortunately, if he does not find the right spot out of this whole mess, or if for some reason Miami traps him there, which if they do, Tua do not play for them if they trade for Deshaun Watson, and you're just floating around waiting for Deshaun Watson's cases to be lifted or to not be lifted. Unfortunately for Tua, if he does not find the right spot, let's say that he gets traded to Denver or he gets traded to Washington, and now we head into the next offseason. They have a bad year, obviously, because you're bringing in a quarterback halfway through the year to a team that's already kind of sliding a little bit. They have a bad year, and they're not successful, and now Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson hit the market, and now you're traded again. That would be the worst-case scenario for Tua, and I do not want to see that happen to him, where he gets traded twice and is playing on 3 different teams in the same year. But that is something that is possibly a reality, hoping that it does not happen for Tua's sake. But it's something that crossed my mind when I was thinking about these moves. Like, what if one of these teams that are just trying to bring a guy in for this year, bring Tua in to try and do that job? That's not what needs to happen. Tua does not need to be brought in to save this year. If a team acquires Tua, they need to acquire him with the idea that they're going to try and develop him over the next 3 to 4 years. Also, to go back to the Deshaun Watson thing, I just wanted to bring it up that in order to acquire Deshaun Watson, if the Miami Dolphins need to clear cap, we could see another player on the move with a big contract. And the player that I specifically think is a guy who already had some contract issues going into this year, and that's Xavier Howard. So just keep an eye on some Xavier Howard news. I assume a contender would probably go after him, maybe a Green Bay Packers. We've seen them be aggressive so far right here around the deadline with picking up some of the free agents that are cut from teams at this point in the year. Maybe we see Kansas City make a move because Kansas City's kind of sliding them damn selves. Maybe they have a panic move there and go ahead and try and bring Xavier Howard in. And God forbid the freaking Buccaneers come in with their injured secondary and get in the Xavier Howard conversation, because all those teams will have to clear cap them damn selves to bring Howard in. But we could see the Dolphins moving Howard to clear cap for Deshaun Watson's $40 million salary that the Dolphins would have to bring in for a guy who probably shouldn't touch the field until 2022 at the soonest. Interesting move here by Miami. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it works out for them. We'll see if it even happens. It could just completely get canceled, but I think it's going to happen one way or another. Deshaun Watson's going to be a Miami Dolphin here before the trade deadline in the middle of the season. I'm sure we'll be reacting to it here on the Warzone when the news breaks, especially if the news breaks and there's an official deal with figures, with draft picks, and what exactly went down between these two teams. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. We're going to be live tomorrow for the Thursday Night Football game, so I hope you guys can come and see me cheer on Case Keenum and the Cleveland Browns to beat the Denver Broncos. I hope to see you guys there. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike, and I'm on the mic. This is me saying until the next news break.